Bob has always said that his it's just energy that's recycling. It has no rhyme or reason. Now and course students think we are in a script. I don't know that he knew that. I don't know what he
He
knew.
did know that. Absolutely, he did. And Bob
Yeah.
was no idiot. Bob absolutely knew that. And he was a student of Nisargadatta, for God's
Yeah,
sake.
but not for long. His whole story is he suffered so much before he got to Nisargadatta's that I think his ego was pretty thinned out
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
because
So
he was suffering from everything, from being poor to being an alcoholic to being whatever else.
yeah. Yeah, he had to go through all that, had to go through AA and all that kind of stuff. There's just so much that he went through, but he definitely did see and know the truth. So it doesn't matter how long you might know it for 1 minute and then you die, but you still knew it. So, we just got to think about it that way, that he was already there. And I knew about Bob before I knew about anybody. When I first started studying the course, there were people who came with Sailor Bob. And so,
Oh,
I listened to him a lot
I
before I ever
can't
came
I
on
can't
Gather.
listen to him.
What's that?
His accent is so big.
That's why
So
I never played him on Gather, is because his accent. I figured, why play up something people will not understand, and they have to work so hard for. But yeah,
I got to him from John Wheeler. And John Wheeler, he knew that there was nothing here, so he got off all of it. He didn't want any parts of it.
yeah,
He didn't
yeah,
want any because it becomes a business, and that's crazy when you're already that.
right, exactly. And that's the thing. It can't become a business. It can't become anything
Well,
other
it is a
than what
business for a lot of people right now.
well, it is. And I'm sorry for that, because I think that's part of, I mean, of course it's a part of their path, and they will sooner or later figure out that, hey, this is not a business. But I mean, I appreciate you send me a donation every month, and I do appreciate that, because that actually pays for the radio, and pays for
Yeah,
part
but
of.
see, if everybody contributed what I did, you would, because you're working. To me, you don't have to be there for everybody. You're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. So,
Yeah, well, yeah, but and it is, but I didn't go into it with that point of view, and
no,
I will never look at it from that point of view, because I
no, of
can't.
course not.
I mean,
No.
it's, but I see a lot of young people coming in that are really up on the course, really up, and really get it, really know, and yet they're still in that mode of, subscribe and pay me. There's they still
Right.
have that notion that somehow you can have the world and let it go at the same time. And, if you truly let go of the world, and I'm not saying this because I have done it, because I have a lot of other things too, but if you truly let go, then you're just going to stop asking or expecting anything and just get what you get. And that's me. I just get what I get. Of course, I don't have to worry so much, because I do have, Social Security. I do have a pension from the mines. So,
Right.
that's something that I many people in this world don't have. So I can't blame
No,
them.
you're in better shape than I am. And without Flip, I had nothing because I had a business and that was all taken. So
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. It's like, you
I don't have a pension. Cliff does. I got lucky though. I really
yeah,
got lucky
yeah,
because
yeah,
otherwise, well, I'm sure I would have lived with one of my kids
yeah, yeah.
or people. I got friends here. Wherever I live, I always attend. Well, I haven't lived that many places, but I have a lot of friends in Altoona. It's no different when you move. It's really no different than any other place. You just have to see it that way.
That's right. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah. Sailor Bob, though, was like, now here's where I got confused because I read Living Reality like maybe a decade ago.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't it's so in line with the course, but at that moment in time, I was probably not as, I didn't understand a lot of this. So, and I was going, when you go through a lot and you still have to clear it out, this is where it takes time.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And you just got to, you got to do the work.
Well,
And
it happens organically for me. It did anyway. I just think it just is happening by itself. But if you're doing the course, but that wasn't my only teaching. It's like I had an idea that I would have an awakening because of what I had before I got to the course. Like
right.
I was catatonic for a night and I was in the hospital. The room went upside down, and that was the biggest shock I've ever seen. I walk in my classroom and it's upside down, only I'm standing okay. And I went and got I didn't realize my ego was cracking open. But cracking open doesn't mean crap, because this process has so many layers.
Yeah.
It's just recently that I feel this, like, no, I don't think that what they're doing right now is a shock, because if you look at America, it's always needed some kind of work because there's so much judgment. I mean, the whole ego thought system is judgment. So
Yeah. Yeah. What? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it. And, you know, all we have to do is just accept that this is what is happening here. And then,
mhm.
let go of it, because I can't change it.
No,
There's nothing I can do about it. And that's, if you truly know that this is what is happening and why it's happening, um, then you can just let go, because you know that, um, nothing can harm you, nothing can change, nothing can do anything to you. So, why not just be here and live this life? And you remember that song that we used to play, that was by that um, um, Jewish kid, that I am holy, and part of the song was, I am here to live this life. And that's it. I'm here to live this life. There's nothing, it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not something I'm proud of. That's not something I'm afraid of. I'm just here to live this life. And that's that's the gift. It really is. Being in the present is the gift. Because then you don't, you're not responsible for it. That's, the thing, I'm responsible for the world I see. And the world I see is one of love and light. So even if, I had a conversation with my son the other day. Okay, so he is very much like me, and his, thoughts and political beliefs and everything. But he said to me the same thing that I have said to you and other people. He said, I don't think Trump's a bad guy. I think he's really a nice guy. And I think he's really trying to do something that he thinks is helpful. And he's, if I was with him in a room, I would like him. And I said, yes, if I was in with him in a room, I could not help but love him. And it would be a love fest, not not exaggerating here. There would be a love fest, because why? Why? How could I be in the presence of the Christ and not be love, not experience love? Of course I can. And he is the Christ, no matter how his costume is made up, no matter what his story is. Remember, we were listening to Diedrich last night. He was saying, no, get rid of the story, no story. Because when you let go of the story, it's just you and me.
right.
Just you and me, and we are the Holy Son of God. So how could we see it any other way? How could we see it any other way than love? And when he said that to me, my heart just burst open with pride. I'm telling you that. I was so proud to hear, this person who has always been just so, um, uh, I don't know, so convicted of his thoughts, that he would say a thing like that. And I knew that the work that I'm doing every day does have a point. There is a fruition to it. Things are going exactly as they should be. And I knew that when I heard that from his mouth, because I recognized that, it's a movement. It's going through. And when people wake up in the morning and they're more filled with love than they are with hate, every morning you wake up that way is another day that the Holy Spirit has you and can work with you. And so anyway, that's the way I feel. I'm just gonna concentrate on the love and let all that other crap go, because it really is the block to the awareness of love
Yeah, we don't,
presence
that's the
of my
thing, we're
own mind.
blocking our own vision.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So,
Trump got a part in the play. It's not his fault. He's just a character in the play.
right. And yeah, and he's good at it. He's good at it. You want somebody that's going to trigger a bunch of people and make a big shift in people's minds. You bring on someone like that who is just going to, scare the crap out of people, upset people, cause people to, want to murder. How many people? I mean, they don't say it straight up loud, but there's a lot of people who are wishing for that person's death. I mean, and a lot of course students who are wishing for that person's
I don't
death.
think it's wrong. I think everybody's exactly where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, no, exactly. But that's where, we have to learn. That's where we have to figure out that, as long as I'm wishing harm on anyone else or anything other than just perfect peace, then, I'm not in perfect peace. I'm not happy. And yeah, let us be happy. That's the key to all of it. I mean, that's really the thing that uh actually comes forward then, is that you experience that happiness that comes from no grievances. That's the grievances are what caused the
It's
upset.
all grievance. It's all grievance. We don't
Yeah,
like this and we like that. We like this, we don't like that.
exactly.
But I can tell you, like coming from my ego, I would say that I wouldn't have voted for him because my values are that I would want everybody to get everything. I'm
Well,
not because,
yeah, you wouldn't have voted for him for sure.
no.
That
Mm-mm.
would have been insane. But a lot of people that we know and love did.
No, I
And
know that.
and you can kind of look at it and go, wow, how
Right.
could you have fallen for this? But it's all a part of the story.
Yeah, it's all part. If every story has a bad guy and a good guy, that's just the way it is. Every story. My story. See, in my dream, I played the good guy. My ex-husband played the bad guy, and it's a shame because his
Yeah.
part was different. But he didn't. He didn't. This isn't happening like consciously for him. So you know, my son Jonathan, I told you, called him and Ronnie was so excited he called Andrew, and that was just beautiful. But that would never have happened if I didn't have a complete shift. It would never have,
Exactly.
because I would have been like, "What he did." This is why I never want to judge somebody who's stuck, because I was stuck for a long time with. There's something the ego gets with being a victim. It's what this whole thing is. It's victim consciousness or pure consciousness. And you only get out of victim consciousness when you're ready. The readiness has to come through. We are life. We are not people. We are life. Anyway,
Exactly.
should I start? You don't have to tape me if you don't want to, because I never listen.
Oh no, we're on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
So do you want me to put up the book? Let me see. What are we reading
well,
today?
I mean, it depends what you want to do. You could take the time off because we have till 10:30, but then we get into the other one. But I'm going to read a little bit about, the substitute reality, Taking the Ego Lightly by Ken.
Oh, okay.
The thing, the more one of the things that I always hear Karen is the reminders. It's to be reminded continuously, and that's what the course did. Because the years I spent on Gather was at least 5 or 6 years before it went to Awaken Together. And honestly, I never realized how much I missed these lessons. I didn't even pay attention.
Yeah.
So the lessons for me, it's the biggest gift I could have had. But anyway, you can't do this wrong because you're being led. So he's talking here about, Ken is talking about the original error. He's saying your whole world rests upon that everything you see reflects it, and every special relationship that you ever made is part of it. It is the original error. Everything our eyes see that seems so serious, or our denial of seriousness by saying everything is wonderful and beautiful, reflects that original error. Now, one of the things that Ken was really teaching a lot was nobody thinks this is a good place, but when you see it from the eyes of the higher self, it has a whole different, it has just a whole different thing because it becomes vision. And vision sees only the Christ. The other things are mere objects of consciousness. That's about it. So Ken is saying everything our eyes see that seems so serious, or our denial of the seriousness by saying everything is wonderful and beautiful, reflects so he's always had a problem with people saying, because we are not asked to see people as people. We are not asked to see objects as objects. We are asked to see one thing, and this is consciousness. Consciousness is the only thing that's in this domain is consciousness, and nothing happened. What that really means is it was over, and all I'm doing right now is thinking that I am Sharon and I'm living in a world with my family, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Sharon is just an idea. She's really not who I am. So it's important to see that, he's saying every special relationship we have made or are making now or dream of making in the future, everyone is part of the original era, which means it is a shadowy fragment of the decision we are making right now. So in every moment, there's always a decision, but these decisions come up organically. They come up, when, according to Sailor Bob, the seeing happens, the hearing happens, the smelling every one of our senses is connected to a clair, which is always those crown chakra on way down, or the root chakra, and it hides a lot of our stories in there. And the reason I think I took Corinne's class last year was because all of this is very helpful to see what we're still holding on to, But again, A Course in Miracles, most students don't even get like for instance, Course in Miracles support, they generally talk more about complete course stuff. So they say there's no such thing as chakras, but there are. There are, in the sense that it's a guide to show you that you're still, like for instance, like sometimes my feet hurt. I used to have plantar fasciitis. And what that is all the stuff that I downloaded as a child, right? And all of that gets translated into victimhood. It has to, you know? So he's saying here, only when, therefore, the world that arose from it is an attack on God. That's the most important part of the thing. If you attack love, then you're attacking everything. And the seriousness that comes through the ego is that's how it was built. It was built as something that we needed to put our attention, just listening to our ego mind and believing that not only are we people, but we're special, we're always right. And it just doesn't, it doesn't help anyone. The idea for me, I never had a vision that I wanted the ego to leave, because I, like maybe you, Lynn, felt like the ego doesn't completely fall away. What it does is it thins out, and it's just a thinner, way of looking at everything. Therefore, the world that arose from it is an attack. But how could a world that does not exist be an attack on God? Only when you believe the ego. And that's the whole point. But, taken from, like, there's so many seasoned course people, like Doug, really, who absolutely don't waver, because that's already, that's his, that's where he starts, like, that there's no world, because that's where he is. And that's where I'm at now too, where I realize I'm just looking at concepts all day long and believing they have something, but I will say that the new administration has taught me some of the lessons I needed to learn. For instance, I did not feel grateful for years with all the things that America was given. I mean, we're the richest country, they say, or one of them, and we've gotten the least amount of stuff. But the story is that America has always been about slaughtering immigrants, like the Indians, the Native Americans. So it's
Right.
it's just a repeat of this static energy that is just coming through all of us, and the decisions made are organic, whereas the one sun, because it's just one life that's waking up, it's not any separate anything. And so I used to think of awakening as a private kind of thing, because that's how my mind was taking it. But awakening is happening through everyone, and how they end up has no merit in anything, because it's happening by itself. There's no human that does, what I found when I got into this is a lot of the teachers who were studying this stuff would pretty much, they have to come through their own filter, and filters remain. So you can't get anything as good as you can from yourself. It's all coming up, really, to be let go of. So what Ken is saying here, that the world that arose from it is an attack, but how could a world that does not exist be an attack? Only when you believe in the ego. That's why the sentence is there. And it is a very important sentence, because it's a way of shooting all the air out of the ego's balloon, that this is a wonderful world. Let's bring peace to the wonderful world. Let's put an end to all sickness and make the world a wonderful place. Let's end all poverty and suffering. That's wonderful. And the Course says the world was made as an attack on God. It ain't going anywhere. No, it ain't going nowhere nice. And everybody's laughing at that point. You are not going to make this world beautiful, safe, or free from disease. The disease is guilt. You don't change the mind's guilt, no matter how many vaccines or immunizations you get, or how many this or that. There will always be something. One of Freud's great contributions, as I've mentioned many times, were showing how our unconscious thoughts are guilt, find their way to the surface by hook or by crook. They get out. It's a fascinating process, because the only thing that's showing up is just a repeat of what happened in the first 7 years of this body mind's life, because that's how we get our story. The story is another organic process. That is what projection is. You have to get to the source of projection. We are projecting everything, and you can't see it until you can see it. That was my experience. So Ken says, you may be surprised to hear how very different is reality from what you see. You do not realize the magnitude of that one error. It was so vast and so completely incredible. What does incredible mean? It means it cannot be believed, because it is not true. That is the error of taking seriously that preposterous thought. I am greater than God. I can find a love greater than what God has given me. And today's lesson is I feel the love of God within me. And that's all that's the whole course, in the sense that the love of God is who we are. We are all the love of God, everyone here. And the seeming people that know this, you know, they show up, and they show up in different studies. But, you know, as far as the memory of God, that's just so obvious, because if this is all there is, just this here-ness, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, all of that, it's a happening by the essence. And it's absolutely incredible that this could have been pulled off. It really is. It's an incredible process. And the one thing that we do, and we don't do this because we made the decision, but consciousness, and the consciousness that we are, makes the decision to say enough is enough. You know, and let's see what the lesson today is. I feel the love of God within me now. Now, that's a really amazing lesson, because that's all there is this pure consciousness. And he's saying here, as I mentioned at the beginning of lesson 188, the lesson also centers on light. The real world, the reflection of heaven's light, is a major focus of the discussion as well. There is a light in you the world cannot perceive, and with its eyes you will not see this light, for you are blinded by the world, yet you have eyes to see it. Truth can never be seen through the body's eyes. We perceive its light when we identify with Jesus's thought system instead of our own. For his vision is independent of physical sight. In the previous lesson, I quoted a passage that is the source of these opening lines, and repeat its first 5 sentences that describe the light of the real world, seen only with the mind's healed eye. You know, and that goes inward. The mind's healed eye, that inner vision, is what comes out and then becomes light. So there's a light that this world cannot give, yet you give it as it was given to you. And as you give it, it shines forth to call you from the world and follow it. For this light will attract you as nothing in this world can do. And you will lay aside the world and find another. And that just means focus on changeless awareness. Stay there. You know, the ego mind feels like there's something else that we need to get. We have to get more food, more TV shows, anything that will block the present moment, right? Indeed, the purpose of the body's eyes was not to see the light of forgiveness that heralds the real world, which is found through Christ's vision. It is there for you to look upon. It was not placed in you to be kept hidden from your sight. This light is a reflection of the thought we practice now. To feel the love of God within is to see the world anew, shining in innocence, alive with hope, and blessed with perfect charity and love. So he goes on to say this now. The ego hides the light by making real the darkness of guilt. And that's something Ken talks about quite a bit, that we have no idea how much guilt is in this mind, because we're still in God. We've not left. Ideas don't leave their source. So, you know, it's all a perfect song of real thanksgiving, of just being. And the happenings that happen really are for us, but we can't know that till we we know it now because that's what we've learned, but I can't know that unless I am practicing the fact that the world serves me no purpose at all. The only purpose I have is to become who I truly am, which is wakefulness, wakeful consciousness. And, you know, it seems like it was a long time ago that a lot of this happened, but there's no time. So the undoing is of the one sun, the one mind, the light. And it seemingly looks as though it's taking time. But to progress on this process, and I did this in the beginning, I rushed through it. And I was one of those people that believed basically that this does take time, because I didn't want to hound myself and think I failed another thing. Well, you can't fail awakening because you're not even there. Anyway, oh, you put this one up. All right. So, who could feel fear in such a world? It welcomes you, rejoices that you came, and sings your praises, that it keeps you safe from every form of danger and of pain. This does not mean that someone may not physically or verbally attack you. It simply means that will be attacked in the dream figure, not the dreamer. How then could you be hurt? That is the whole point, right? We're the dreaming mind. It simply means that what will be attacked is the dream figure, not the dreamer. How then could you be hurt? And now I can't even say this word. Look at your dream at night that you are injured and then awaken and feel perfectly fine. That's what's going on here too. This is no different than the nighttime dreams we have every single night. And we don't take our dreams seriously, so why would we take this seriously? But again, it happens organically. So let's see, Lynn. When I look at what you put up,
This is the book that you were reading.
yes, I'm going back and forth. Yeah, and so it's the. Do you know anything about this? You want to share a little bit on this page? That's up to you.
Um,
This is really my. I mean, it still depends. The
yeah,
Gnostics.
yeah. Um, let's see, what is he saying here?
I didn't know anything about the Gnostics, so.
Oh, yeah, okay. Course in Miracles calls this miscreate. Those of you who know Gnosticism will remember that one of the great Gnostic myths was the myth about Sophia, who was originally part of God's creation. And it's funny, that's Sophia, that's what Jimmy Toyman calls his AI, Sophia. Also, in Sophia means wisdom. Unfortunately, Sophia is a she in Greek. Also in Greek, Sophia means wisdom. It's a kind of play on the word, though, because Sophia was not very wise. But men always liked to make the error feminine, right? Laughter. I got a lot of agreement, at least from one gender in the audience, and more laughter. Sophia thought she could create on her own like her father, and she did. She gave birth to the God who made the world, the biblical God. The afterbirth became the world. That is how the Gnostics thought of the world, as an afterbirth. You all know what an afterbirth is. It's not very nice. It's a little bloody. Yeah, so this is what's left after the world was created, and what we're living through is the the shell, the whole, the placenta, and and the world itself has already gone beyond what we could see. But Sophia thought she could create on her own. That's the error. That is not serious. It's just downright silly. So, yes, so going back to what was the real error here was the belief that I could be without God, that I could create without God. And of course, we have the power. We have the infinite creative power of God. We also have the infinite imagination in which we could create or make up anything. And this is what we've done. We've just imagined up a world that's full of terror. And these ancient people knew this because they looked at the world, they looked at what they were, they recognized that they were of a higher form than the projection of the world would make. So they realized that there was something within that was much greater than what appeared. Um, and so the Gnostics, that Gnostic just means knowing. They're just people who had a knowing. And I agree. I think you, as you just explained here, you had a knowing. I've had a knowing my whole life. We've known our whole life that there's something, there is a world, and there's a real world, and there's a world of upset and fear. And we have really the choice to choose. But of course, when you're little, you don't recognize that. Although you kind of do. I don't know if you did this. I would imagine that you did because you had some terrible things happening to you when you were a child. Is called dissociation. You actually just leave that situation in your mind and you go to another situation in your mind where things are peaceful or happy, or there is, that there's no place to fear. Those two places are both in your same mind, but you get to choose which one you want to inhabit. So when bad things were happening to me, I was in a whole nother world, a whole nother world. I had whole different ideas. I can't even describe it to you. A combination of Never Never Land and just just a place where I could just be strong. That was basically the place I would go to in my imaginary mind when bad things were happening. I went to a place where I was strong. And so and I was creative and I was intelligent, and I had, you know, I wasn't in that other place anymore. So I recognized, I knew, you knew, I'm sure there was something that you did in your mind that told you you were okay when these bad things were happening, because that's there, and it's there to, because it's what you are. And we go to it to remember, to be encouraged, to feel loved, to feel uh, safe. That safe place is in your own mind. Someone can come and take you out of that situation, put you in another, take you to another home, put you in another place. Are you going to feel safe there? No, if you're not feeling safe where you are, you're not going to be feeling safe anywhere. So the Gnostic knows that they're safe. The Gnostic knows that there's something going on here that's far beyond what our intelligent mind can tell us. And so the Gnostic lived in that world. So, yeah. So, Sophia thought she could create on her own. That's the error. That is not serious. It's just downright silly. And I love how Ken uses the word silly throughout this whole thing. It's so great. God does not even know about it, but we know about it because we are the offspring of Sophia and Eal the Bath, the name, whatever, Eal the Boeth, um, is the corruption of the Hebrew name for God, comparable to the Lord of hosts. Ealdabaoth is Sophia's son. In fact, one very funny scene where Ealdabaoth, remember, this is the biblical God, is saying he is the great God, none greater than he. Then this female voice from the back says, "Whoa, just wait a minute. Remember who gave you life?" So there we are, right there. We still, no matter what kind of, I think I'm the this and I'm the that, or I'm small, I'm broken, I'm afraid, I'm uh, whatever, I'm a woman, whatever it is, these thoughts, somewhere in the back of our mind, there is a voice that says, "Hey, do you remember who made you?" And of course, that is right there. It's not like we don't have to go looking for it. It's just right there. And yet, we look at it and say, "Where'd that come from? Who said that?" Yeah, no, uh, it doesn't work that way. Excuse me. So again, Ken says again, Sophia is the name for the error, what we would call the ego of believing that we could create like God. This wonderful universe of death, sickness, starvation, poverty, and suffering is our creation. And we think it's just wonderful. Remember what the biblical God says in the creation story in Genesis? He looked at all he created and said, "This is good. It's very good." Of course, the ego is very good. The ego says, "Look what I did. I'm greater than you, God, because I could kill what I created. You can't do that. So now I have power, not only over life, but over death too." What is that? Oh, okay. That is the insanity of the world in which we live. And that is the insanity of the foundational thought of the world in which we live. The problem is not the world, it's not war, pestilence, sickness, or disease, or all the awful things people do to each other. It's not a politician, it's not a government, it's not a church, it's none of those things. Is that the problem? That's not the problem. True, all of that is awful, but it is not the problem. What is impossible is the belief in the impossible. That is the impossible. Again, from text chapter 18, section 1. Um, the error, was so vast and so completely incredible that from it a world of total unreality had to emerge. That's it. That's the only thing that could happen. It was so crazy that nothing else could happen but to be shown, yeah, looky here. You think this is cool? You think you're going to like this? You think this is what you want? How many parents gave the child what they wanted? The kid comes and says, "I want to eat, a whole box of chocolates." And the parent says, "Okay, go for it. But well, we'll just wait and see." And then 3 hours later, when the kid's hunched over the toilet, hawking his guts out because he ate all that chocolate, you're like, well, that's the world that you created. That I gave you what you wanted. I gave you what you asked for. And the thing is not to punish me for having asked. It's to tell me, be careful what you ask for. Think about it before you ask for it, because you do not see the full picture. We just don't see the full picture. So there's that Garth Brooks song called "Unanswered Prayers," and if you don't know, I'm a huge Garth Brooks fan. But this song "Unanswered Prayers," he goes to his high school reunion with his wife, and they have kids and a happy life. And goes to the high school reunion, and he sees this girl that he was in love with in high school, and he sees that she has become like not like a real housewife kind of person. And he looked at her and he looked at his wife and he said, "Thank God you didn't answer my prayers." And then the song is, sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. Remember when you're asking the man up there that not because he doesn't give it to you doesn't mean he doesn't care. Just thank God for unanswered prayers. And so that's it exactly. We if we knew what we were asking for, we would change our mind about it. If we knew that we were asking for a life of grief and anger and dissatisfaction, would we ask for that? Would we want that? No. So that's why this unreal world has to come out, because here's, okay, you asked for this, look, here's what you get. You asked for it, you got it. And
Lynn, I was going to say, you don't have to keep reading because I got off from that call right away.
oh, okay, all right, it didn't matter. I'm just
Oh, as
enjoying.
long as you're not, yeah, because I got off right away though.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm just enjoying uh
yeah,
thinking
then
about.
you continue if you enjoy it. That's fine with me.
Yeah, no, well, we're here together, so we might as well. So
It's so funny because you don't see things until the readiness. Like here it says, that is what the world is, a place of total unreality. And it looks so freaking real because we're so powerful,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And, here Sailor Bob is having a discussion with this woman because I have all his books, Sailor Bob's. And I'll tell you what's so good about it. He's the finish line where he was, where we're in a process. But I think that you and I right now are on the finishing line, meaning that it's still a process, but we already have certainty that there is no world,
Yeah.
complete certainty. And that for me came maybe a little slower. So he says, Vashti, a woman that's speaking to Bob, said, so I'm the power. And he says, yes, you are the power. Even you're expressing where the power is coming from, couldn't exist without life's essence. Thought is just a translator. It translates into words and concepts. You have to understand that the word can't be the real thing. The map is the territory. So he's saying,
I love that. The map is the territory. Oh my
map
God.
can't be the territory.
Oh,
Can't be.
can't be the
Right,
territory.
right, right, right. The word water will never quench your thirst. The word me is not what you are, and the thought I am is not you either. That's the primary thought. Awareness or consciousness is your true nature. It is constantly with you. Under no circumstances can you say, I am not, because you have to exist to be able to say it. So our existence is that we are we're really invisible. I mean, there's nothing about us that's visible, that's real.
Yeah, there's
We're
no
wearing,
form involved.
yeah, like we're wearing a bodysuit, but it doesn't, he says, she said, Vashti likes this. This is James Brana's wife. It says, it feels so good. Of course, it would seem like things come and go. I lose touch and I forget. The mind is always, and he said, yes, the mind is dualistic. It can only function in interrelated pair of opposite. If it's not past, which is memory, then it's future, which is imagination and anticipation. And within that range, it's constantly functioning in good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative, and so on. Life is only a vibration or movement of energy, and it gets translated into words or labels. This whole manifestation is that dualism. If there wasn't silence, there couldn't be sound. So it's all a play on opposites. If there wasn't a day, there couldn't be a night. So the entire manifestation is only an appearance. It's just vibration or patterns of energy appearing on the emptiness. We take the appearance to be real, but it's not. You are the essence on which the vibrations appear. And that's not in the body. The body is in that. So it's kind of like, Bob is at the finish line and we are progressing, as Course in Miracles students. It is an undoing that really is in spirit's hands. It has nothing to do with the person because there is no person, so it's all of this, I think that most powerful thing for me is coming back and realizing I am mind, I'm not a body. Because mind is just the decision maker who then says, okay, that's enough. I don't want any more of this. And it only happens with that inside readiness of spirit. Spirit has decided, because the one mind is waking up, the one light is waking up. Everything here is light, and that's the light of awareness. And even those are concepts. But there's what you were sharing, Lynn, is there's an innate, now Sarah Bob says that all through his book, but I'm not going to try to find it now. But there's innate remembering of who we are. Every human, at least for me, there was something about the space that I always felt cozy with. And that would be the knowing, right? The knowing is very powerful in certain people, not all people. It's like, because it's a light that doesn't say, well, I think I'll pick Lynn and not Sharon. It's not that way. It's
Yeah, no,
like,
it's everybody the same. And the thing that we're not seeing it is the filters, the
right. And
blocks.
I had a problem with the fact I had stayed in Awakening Together. It was the only thing that was really running a program all the time. And what I got was there was a lot of talk about guidance. And I think that can be a trap. At least it was for me.
Yeah,
Because the guidance,
absolutely.
yeah, the guidance comes automatically. You don't need to listen to a teacher to find out what your guidance is. The guidance is an automatic, but the part of our mind that's healed, the part of our mind that's in peace. Because the mind of the thinker is just thinking all these stories up, and they're just opposites. There's nothing here but
Well,
the opposite. It's a play of opposites, or the peace of God, which is a
so
reflection. Yeah,
go.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just thinking the idea of guidance, which is I think is so misconceived. Uh,
Yes,
and I would see it all the time. People would say, "I was guided to do this, and I was guided to do that." Actually, it was in the script that you did
that's
this. This was
exactly it. Yeah,
nobody told you go do this. This is where you're going. So if we look at guidance as being a map of the road that's already mapped out, we're just following it. So
right.
there's nothing that is not guidance. There's nothing that you do that is
Nothing that could
not
ever
guidance.
show up. And that was like a trap because I stayed and I was never sure of myself, really, because, you know, I don't want to mention any names, but some people would say, well, you weren't listening to the guidance. Like, how could you know what somebody's listening to? It's not our business. Everybody's path is perfect for them. If yours is perfect, theirs has to be.
Right.
Right.
So
So,
you weren't listening to the guidance either. That's the thing. If whatever you're accusing me of, that's what you're doing. Look at
right.
yourself.
Well, it was my issue when I thought, if you're in a place long enough, you will think guidance is important. But there was something that it's when you came out with this group again with on because the course lessons are really where I spent my time, by myself before I met Cliff for at least 5 years. And then I did away with it because it wasn't brought up. But that was on me too. Because being exposed to different teachings for me was helpful, but it's not always.
Yeah,
I'm not a purist course because I think all the teachings are saying the same thing. They're all saying there is no world. You are
exactly.
looking at concepts all through the day. Anyway, we have to get to the next teaching. So,
Oh, it's time. Okay. So all right. Let's see. I'm just okay. Let's just mark this book here. And
I
then
just love all this stuff. The thing about readiness, it creeps in, and when it comes, it just comes as like, you're done with this. You don't need this anymore. And that's really what we want to like look at. We don't need the drama. I want to be honest. There is a lot of attraction to guilt and death still in the mind.
yes,
So I'm
yes.
looking at that. There's an
That's the thing, though.
attraction.
You're noticing it. That's the thing.
Right.
Before you didn't notice it, did you? You just thought this is the way it is, and this is just the way I am, and this is just the
I'll
way
be
you
okay
are.
when I die, right? But I
Yeah,
realize that the attraction is that we really do feel we deserve it. We don't know that because it's so unconscious. Like consciousness is got so many levels and layers, but yet in order to be totally free is to examine those layers to see that we are doing this to ourselves. It's all coming from there was a time where I would tell people that were suffering, do the course. Well, I never say that anymore because that teaching is not for them. It's for me. Every time I say something like, let's do this, let's do that. Like yesterday, I was, listening. I was doing art and I was listening to Nonviolent Communication by
Marshall
Marshall
Rosenberg.
Rosenberg. And there's so much, that book has so much clarity and gives you tools to work with people. It's like what you did last night with Diedrich's teaching, because it is that simple, the process. But the one thing I think that's the greatest reminder is this was always a process. What Ken has a book called Living A Course in Miracles, and he gets on there and says, please, this is a process. And the thing is, each son or each seeming son is waking up in what there is going to help them. But it takes the willingness is automatic because it's always coming from right-mindedness, willingness. The ego is not willing to be anything but right? So anyway, let's go with now we go to our next book, which will be good.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and close out this. And thank you so much, Sharon. This has been a lot of fun. And anybody listening on YouTube, just, go ahead and subscribe. You'll get a notification anytime that we're coming up, and you might want to go and check out the different programs that we have, and check us out on acimgather.us, and you'll see our whole schedule.